So I welcome all of you who are here this evening, and shortly we will be welcoming the panelists as well. So right now we're going to begin by inviting Father Gary Bowen from St. John the Evangelist Catholic Church to open us with prayer.
Well, thank you. Welcome, everyone. Blessings to you all. They say that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, but stealing, I think, probably is the most important sign of flattery. So I'm stealing from the Gospel of Life, the Evangelium Vitae, as an introduction to our prayer this evening. This was in 1995, and it says, "We are facing an enormous and dramatic clash between good and evil, death and life, the culture of death and the culture of life. We find ourselves not only faced with, but necessarily in the midst of this conflict. We are all involved and we all share in it, with the inescapable responsibility of choosing to be unconditionally on the side of life." And that was from Karol Wojtyła, who went on to become Pope John Paul II in his encyclical. Let us pray. Father, we praise you with all your creatures. They came forth from your all-powerful hand. They are yours, filled with your presence and your tender love. Spirit of God, by your light you guide this world toward your Father's love and accompany all of creation as it groans in travail. You also dwell in all our hearts, and you inspire us to do what is good. Oh God, in this wondrous community of infinite love, which is your expression, teach us to contemplate you and the beauty of the things around us, the world, the universe, one another. All things speak of you. Awaken our praise and thankfulness for everything and every person that you have made. God of love, show us our place in this world as channels of your love for all the creatures of this earth, for all the beings that share this planet with us. For not one of them is forgotten in your sight, and all reflect your wisdom and your wonder. And we pray, enlighten those who possess power and money, that they may avoid the sin of indifference, that they may love the common good, advance the weak, and care for this world in which we live. O God, seize us with your power, your strength, your might. Help us to protect all life, to prepare for a better future, for the coming of your kingdom of justice and peace, love and beauty. Praise be to you. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Now I have the privilege of introducing our three panelists and saying just a word about each one. First is Kate Bremen, who is the State Director of Environment Maryland. Growing up in a family-run farm, this gave Kate a deep appreciation for and a connection to the land. And over the last decade in particular, Kate has worked on sustainability and environmental protection in a variety of ways, from sustainability education, food equity programs, and organic farming to grassroots campaigns, political advocacy, and legislative work. In her current role, she works to protect our air, our water, and our climate for generations to come. And so we welcome Kate. Next is Kimberly Reichert. Kimberly is the recycling coordinator with Howard County government, with over 20 years of experience with recycling and solid waste program management, education, and outreach. She has special interest in composting and is also interested in reducing the need for recycling by consuming less, which I think you'll find by the film that's one of the main messages that came through. Her concern is for us to be smarter consumers and encouraging donations and repair and reuse. And finally, our last panelist is Pat Hersey, who is the founder of Less Plastic Please. It's a grassroots organization with the mission to reduce single-use plastic. Also came up quite often in the film, The Story of Plastic. Within 3 years, Less Plastic Please has spearheaded and helped pass the Howard County Bag Bill. And so Less Plastic Please has been honored with the Howard County Green Leadership Award in 2019 and 2020. The organization was named one of the Eco Warriors in the 2019 HER magazine. Since plastic is a major driver of climate change, Less Plastic Please, with others, has successfully lobbied the Columbia Association to declare a climate emergency resolution, and not to rest on their laurels, but Less Plastic Please is now working with the county council on a bill, I believe, or some kind of a proposal, CB 13/2021. I'm sure she'll say something about that. It's a Plastics Reduction Act, and the hearing will be on February 16th, so not too far off in the future. So, as she put it, this is a great opportunity to start good trouble. So we're very glad to have all three of our panelists here today. Now, Bonnie, are you going to give us a little bit of directions on what we do next?
Yes. So I stopped sharing my screen, and Kate is going to share her screen and start her presentation.
Thank you all so much for having me. There we go. Okay, is everybody able to see, and you can't see my notes? Okay, great. I'm Kate. I'm the Director of Environment Maryland. We are a statewide, citizen-based environmental advocacy organization. I am so excited to be here with you tonight. Thank you so much to Interfaith Partners for having me. For the last couple of years, I seem to have a difficult time getting off my soapbox about plastic pollution. So it's always a joy for me when someone actually asks me to talk about it, because whether you ask me or not, I'm going to talk about it. So we are going to, you watched The Story of Plastic, if you're here, I imagine. So you got an understanding of the scope, right? That documentary does an incredible job of giving us an idea of how incredibly broad the plastic problem is. So I'm going to kind of blow through these slides somewhat quickly, just as a reminder of what we learned from that film. So here are just some stats that you probably heard in the documentary. What I wanted to do is also try to shine a light on Maryland specifically. So here in Maryland, our water is absolutely not spared from the pervasiveness of plastic pollution. In 2015, NOAA's Marine Debris Program revealed that there is significantly high concentrations of microplastics in the waters of the Chesapeake Bay. We know that in the last 6 years since that study was done, it has gotten astronomically worse. You also saw in the documentary the horrifying moment of the turtle with the straw. Plastic not only poses a fatal threat to wildlife, but what we're finding is that plastic is now a part of the ecosystem. It's in the tissues of fish, it's in the stomachs of seabirds. So it's not only that it often proves fatal, but it's that we are entering a time where plastic is now inextricable from our wildlife and from our ecosystems. The impact on air. I live in Baltimore City. We have an incinerator that releases particulate matter, carcinogens, neurotoxins. The asthma rate among children in Baltimore City is double the national average. So we also know that when plastic ends up getting burned, and you saw this in the documentary as well, it can cause some very serious health impacts. This is the piece that I like to talk about the most, because it's the piece that the fewest number of people have heard of with plastic. So for such a long time, plastic was just seen as a litter issue, right? And the industry responded with "Keep America Beautiful. You uncaring litter bugs, throw it in the recycling or the trash can, it's your fault," right? Then it sort of started to take on a life of its own, and we saw that, recycling was never actually able or intended to manage this amount of plastic waste. But now we're in a time where, number one, people are understanding the devastating impacts that plastic has on our ecosystems. But we're also really starting to see that fighting climate change needs to be all hands on deck, right? And part of that is going to be meaningfully and quickly moving away from single-use plastic. So the statistic I've included here blew my mind. Plastic production or plastic pollution is equal to the emissions of 189 coal power plants. This is really last year, 2020, last year alone. So we're in a state where we are working hard to move away from fossil fuel power. We are working to transition to clean, green, renewable sources of energy, and allowing ourselves to keep consuming single-use plastic at this level really stands in stark opposition to those goals. You can't separate them. So here on the left, this is a picture that actually Bonnie from Interfaith Partners took. This is a storm drain in Baltimore City, right? This is what it looks like. Now, how much of that has gone down the storm drain and has made it out to our water? When it gets there, what happens? It degrades into microplastics, into a sort of plastic soup, right? Or it ends up in the stomach of a fish or a seabird. And eventually, likely, it ends up back in our bodies. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. On the right here, you'll see Baltimore City's incinerator. Burning plastic is not a solution. So I've thrown a lot of really bad news at you, and I apologize for that. And you already knew it because you watched the movie, and so you didn't probably need me to re-say it. But here is the good news. There are solutions to this problem, right? I work on the advocacy side of things. I try to work with education. I work on grassroots campaigns, and I also work with Pat in the legislature on legislative solutions. And so one of the other things that we saw in the movie was that in order to make this huge system level change in how we think about waste and how we think about plastic, more importantly, right? How we think about this thing that is literally designed to never degrade, and yet it is being used for packaging that is only intended to be used once. That's a serious design flaw. This chart is from a report that we released that called The State of Recycling. In that report, we found that Maryland's plastic recycling rate was only 13% in 2017. So when you think about that and you separate out our rates of recycling, that's a huge percentage of plastic that is not being recycled. Now, part of that is because there simply are not markets for plastic, right? I am not trying to throw Maryland under the bus and say that we are not doing a great job. The reality is that most plastics simply don't have a market anymore, right? So the idea of recycling rests on the concept that someone wants to buy your waste and make something new out of it, right? And that's only logical if when you buy it, there's actually a market for turning it into something new. In reality, it's normally much cheaper to create virgin plastic than to go through that process. And that's where policy and advocacy come in. So here I have put specifically what we are working on in Maryland, right? So you saw that chart. Here's what we're doing this year with the help of Less Plastic Please and so many other phenomenal partners. The first one is reduction, right? Plastic Bag Reduction Act, single-use plastic reduction. These are bills that turn off the tap, right? Bills that try to limit that point source reduction and say, okay, first things first, we got to cut down on the amount. Producer responsibility, you also heard about in the movie. Producer responsibility says if you make it, you need to be responsible for its end of life. And if it isn't recyclable, if it is not, there are not recycling markets for it, you can't call it recyclable. And you cannot expect municipalities and taxpayers to bear the financial responsibility for dealing with this waste. This third bullet here is a ban on chemical recycling. That could be its own webinar in itself. I will not spend a ton of time on it, But I bring it in to say that, like you saw in the film, the industry is absolutely still trying to find ways to greenwash their way out of actually taking responsibility for the problem, right? So we know that it's going to be people like us on this call. It's going to be people like us who demand change, who demand accountability, and who say that we know that there is a better way, that we can do better. So reducing our plastic use is critical. And the last thing that I'll say here, because I know I'm running out of time, is that plastic is an issue that impacts our entire world. You saw that, I think, really well articulated in the video. It is water, it is wildlife, it is climate, but it's also human health. And what we are finding now is that as microplastics get smaller and smaller, and we ingest them through our seafood, through our water, through vegetables, through everything they're finding microplastic in, we're finding that those microplastics are actually getting small enough to find their way through the alveoli in our lungs, to find their way into our bloodstream, where they actually fight with molecules. They did a study recently that showed the first time they have found microplastics present in an unborn fetus, right? So we're coming to a place here where we are right at the edge of making a decision. Are we going to allow plastic to be something that is completely inextricable with our planet, something that is bound up with our marine life, with our ecosystems, and with our own bodies? Or are we going to hold industries accountable who have doubled and tripled down on not only plastic pollution, but on climate pollution, on fossil fuel use, right? So I think that we are at an incredibly unique and critical position. I think so many people are thinking about plastic, and such a big light is being shown on the hugely disproportionate impact on communities that are low-income and communities of color. I'm at my 10 minutes, I see, so I will stop talking. But on this slide, I have put our website and I have put my personal email. I would not be able to do the work that I do without you. So please don't hesitate to email me if you have questions or comments. So thank you again so much for having me.
Thank you very much, Kate. We really appreciate it. Should we go right on to Kimberly then, Bonnie?
Just one second. Oh, she's Kate. While you're done, someone had put in the chat if you would put the bill numbers in the chat. So if you could do that, that would be great. And Kimberly, we see you. Can you hear us? Kimberly, you're up.
Make sure and unmute yourself, Kimberly, if you're there.
She's typing. I think she's having technical problems. Oh, we lost her. I think, Pat, we'll go ahead to you. Sorry to give you short notice, but Kimberly is having problems.
Sure, no problem. Okay, can everybody see okay? I hope. Okay. Hello?
Yes, we can see
Okay.
it just right. That's
All
good.
right, thank you. Always want to make sure.
Yep, that's good.
All right, so good evening again, and thanks to all the speakers. Kate, I love you. You did a great job. And thank you for the Interfaith Partners for hosting this important event. My name again is Pat Hersey. I'm founder of Less Plastic Please, and I will discuss how we, against all odds, passed the Howard County bag bill, and now working to pass our next bill, the Plastic Reduction Act. So where do you start when you want to cause some good trouble? First, you want to find your passion, and then a dining room table. I was lucky enough to actually meet Diane Wilson from the movie, The Woman Who Sued Formosa, wonderful woman. She told me she started around the dining room table and said all the best work starts around the dining room table. Well, that is the dining room table I sat around to discuss our disdain for plastic bags. And we complained that somebody should do something. And then in true Lily Tomlin form, we said, hey, we're somebody. And if I can say that a picture of the plastic bags was taken right on Snowden River Parkway in Columbia. So there's plastic everywhere. So Howard County has so many great environmental groups, and we collaborate all the time. So joining a group is a wonderful way to learn the ropes, and it is refreshing to be with like-minded folks. And let me let you in on a little secret. You really don't need to know everything before you start action. You know, along with the passion, determination, and good people, knowing where you can find resources is a great way to start to make change. Being a champion for your bill is your main job. Persistence is key. If an elected official does not respond to you, keep calling and keep emailing until they respond. Not all, but some officials use the technique to knock you down. It's the dismiss, discourage, and ignore technique. Do not let that stop you. Always be kind, but be persistent. One of the best bits of advice I received is to remember that your representative is a person too. You want this to be a win-win. You want to thank them when you can. You want to develop a relationship, but you also want to stand up for what you know is right and what is necessary. We were lucky enough to find supportive officials in Delegate Terry Hill on the far right and Council Member Opal Jones next to Delegate Hill. So you need to know your cast of characters. And on Google, you can type in mdelect.net. This page will come up. Type in your address. All the names of your elected officials will appear. Click on each name and the contact information for them will show up. And then put that information on your phone because you'll be calling them. And then at the page for the Howard County for local legislation, at the bottom left is a column titled Legislation. That first line is the current legislation where you can actually read the bill. And then a few steps below that is the testimony sign up. You want to give oral testimony. And then on the bottom left hand corner, you see who represents me. Click on that and you can find your county council district and who is your county council member. So everybody needs a mantra. And because I can promise you, you will have naysayers. You will have folks that will tell you the bill will never pass. And sadly, you will have folks that will verbally attack you. But when you have the facts on your side, just nod your head and keep moving forward. And you want to educate yourself because the more I learn about plastic, the more I know I must act. This was we took a tour of the recycling facility in Kit Kat Road. And then you want to educate the community every chance you get. I really need to believe that every time I talk, hopefully one person makes a change. And if that one person will help someone else make a change, that ripple effect is what really makes a difference. And with so many bills out there, once again, being a champion for your bill and educating anybody who will listen is so important. One legislative aide told me energy in is equal to energy out. Every action counts. We all know our plates are full right now. So if all you can do is click on a petition to support a bill, then do it. But if you can call or make an email or give oral testimony, that all has tremendous power for change. And you want to walk the talk. You want to bring your bag. You want to refuse single-use plastic. You want to bring your reusable produce bags. You never know who is noticing you in your actions. So that, again, will help with that ripple effect. In press coverage, good and bad, creates a conversation and allows for increased awareness. So writing letters to the editor, Facebook, all the social media campaigns are all important ways to get the word out. in winning awards always help. This award gave us the opportunity to meet with Representative Sarbanes, who is there, the third on the left, to talk about plastic pollution. Not that we're taking credit, but Representative Sarbanes is in complete support of plastic reduction and has signed on to the Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act, which was mentioned in the movie. However, our senators, Senator Cardin and Senator Van Hollen, have not signed on. And that is another action you can do. Call your senators and tell them you want to sign on to the Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act. I am very excited to report that the Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act will be reintroduced in March. And we will have a campaign to promote that bill because I love this bill. And I'll be happy to discuss that in more detail if people have questions. So this is how good it feels when you can cause some good trouble. One of the sweetest stories is one of the teens that worked on the bill for the Howard County bag bill said the first time she heard a cashier tell a customer there's a 5-cent fee for the plastic bag, she said, I did a little happy dance in my head. So that's the kind of change. We're changing a whole next generation too. And of course, next up is our Plastic Reduction Act. It's a CB 13/2021, and it, like they mentioned, it will be heard on the 16th for the public hearing. You can sign up and email that county council email address to say you support the bill. The bill will ban plastic straws, including bioplastics, which is just another greenwashing plastic, and plastic stirrers. It will make all other straws, stirrers, as well as plastic cutlery and condiment package upon request. Like Kate said, you want to get those bans and regulations in place because that makes a difference. And, I hope you saw that this was a little tongue in cheek because like Dorothy and Oz, right now you have the power to make a change and to cause good trouble. So in closing, I would say if this movie made you angry or sad or disgusted, don't waste that energy. That is an indication of your passion. Turn those emotions into actions. Join a group, help pass a bill. You can make a difference. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to unmute. Unfortunately, I have to say that our other presenter was having technical difficulties and she lost her audio. So she has bowed out. So we will have more time for questions and then and my short presentation as well. So we can open the floor for questions. Pastor Stephen, if you want to, there's some already in the chat. Can you see those?
Yeah, I can. Early on, somebody was asking about straws. I think they were asking, what might you do with them if you have some that are left over? In other words, how do you dispose of them? I think is the question this person was asking.
I can take that. This is Pat. Unfortunately, it's best to trash. It's best to landfill plastic. The other option, plastic straws for multiple reasons are not recyclable, regardless of what you might hear, and you don't want to incinerate them. So it's the lesser of the evils. You don't want to do that either. So that's why reusables are always the way to go. But if you have any left over, use them, and when they're ready to throw out, just discard them.
Somebody asked if you're giving testimony, an oral testimony, should you also write emails saying the same thing? I'm guessing in advance that if you say the same thing more than once, it's fine. But I'll let one of you answer that. In other words, do you, besides a phone call or besides an email, I would imagine the more times you can share information, the better, but I'll let one of you all confirm that.
I agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll jump in too and say I agree. And I also think that the thing about the difference between verbal testimony, writing an email, making a call, is that it gives you three opportunities to say three slightly different things, right? So I might write you a letter and say, here's a picture that I took in your district, right, in my email. But then I might give verbal testimony that I know will appeal to the entire council. And then I might place a call and say something that I know is particularly personal to you. So I would figure out, what's the best way for your audience, for the person you're talking to access your issue, and then tailor it. But yeah, call them, email them, give verbal testimony, like definitely.
Somebody asked if one of these bills would be exempting like hospitals and long-term care facilities from the straw bans.
Yes, for Howard County, there is an exemption for that, and it does comply with the American Disability Act also. And the state bill that is the reduction of plastic is all just upon request. There's no ban within that bill. And that bill number is HB 69.
Is there any more development, or are you aware of alternative materials besides plastics that they're coming out with?
I can jump in here if that's okay,
Sure.
Pat.
Of course.
I think the thing here to be very careful of is that, like Pat mentioned and like you saw in the movie, is that when you see something like a bioplastic, it's actually still quite bad for the environment, right? And so what's been really difficult is to try to find the tools and the information to sift through the greenwashing that is often done by industry. And so, yes, in the sense that we absolutely have better materials for so much of our packaging, and for our single-use items and for things like that. And so I think that we are in a time of truly unprecedented technological advancement for some of those big questions. However, we have to balance that with this older wisdom of knowing what was right before we had plastic, right? So thinking about the fact that you really can't beat a reusable bag. And for me, I'm young, I'm a millennial, but I know that before my time, before my generation, there were much better alternatives. And so what I'm hoping is that eventually we don't refer to them as alternatives, we refer to them as just the things we use, and that plastic is sort of this like weird memory of a time when we used this material that was not suited for its purposes.
Yes, and I can only agree with everything Kate said. Bioplastics, I see that as the very next plastic, the next disaster. We already have solutions. We have reusables. That's what we have to focus on. Everybody wants to find the next plastic. We don't need the next plastic. We need to make sure we find something better than the next plastic. We need to, everything that's coming out on bioplastics is just as dangerous and just as bad as regular plastic, BPA free, yay, right? Well, what they replace that with BPS and BPF, which is at least as bad as BPA. So believe me, the greenwashing the industry is pushing now that renewables, getting away from fossil fuels, plastic is what the fossil fuel industry is clinging to. So they are going to be doing whatever they can to find the big solution as the next plastic. And that's my soapbox.
Someone had asked a question.
Yes, Pastor Stephen, we're getting we have really, really a hotbed of questions. So I think we should try to run through these pretty quick, right? But before we get moving too far along, several people have asked for you both, Pat and Kate, if you'll put your email addresses in the chat so people can contact you. So if you can be working on that, then Pastor Steve, I don't know if you want to work from the bottom up or the top down, but we've got tons of questions here.
All right, well, we'll just ask the panelists to give quick answers then. One of the questions was about a word. I don't know the word, but I will spell it for you. Someone wanted to know if paralysis is acceptable. Someone recognizes that? Okay, we'll say a word about it.
Pat! Pat. We'll keep it short. I'm sorry, Bonnie. You have
It's hard to keep it short.
yeah. Here's what you should do, person who asked that question. You should email me and Pat, and we will explain to you pyrolysis and why it is 100% the next, I call it, this is under the umbrella of chemical recycling. I lovingly refer to it as the Sharknado of polluting industries. It is an attempt to lock us into not only plastic use, but fossil fuel use. I have some strong feelings about it. Please email me. No to pyrolysis, but let's talk more.
So it's bad.
Uh,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So someone else here, let's see, what would you say about Sweden being labeled as a leader for recycling plastic when it burns all of its plastics? I'm not sure if that's true, but that's the question.
That's what you call greenwashing, and there's many scenarios that our recycling rate you need to take with a grain of salt, because some of that is considered recycling. That's incinerated is considered recycling. When thing is changed from one thing to another, that is not recycling. But there's all these caveats that allow the government to get away with really damaging our environment and ourselves.
Along with advocating to reduce or ban plastics, what are the ways are you educating the public on how they can substitute goods wrapped in, or made of plastic?
This, and Pat, I'll go quick in case you have something. I feel like this starts to hedge us into that intersection of environmentalism and justice, right? Because so often we're told, we'll go to farmers markets, shop local, buy these alternative products. And that's great if you can afford to do that. So as far as educating people on how they can do it, I think that starts to open up this larger conversation on economic disparity and on the fact that we are not in a system that allows people to choose the most sustainable option most of the time, right? So I think that it's a hard question to answer. And to be honest, my answer is I do try to educate people, but I also have to check my privilege and who I am to understand that some of the things that I might have access to are not options for most people. Pat, do you have a better answer than that?
No, that's a wonderful thing. I mean, one thing that we do is we had a campaign where you made reusable bags out of t-shirts, that there's so many simple things that are there already that we take for granted, and that can be utilized to help life a little bit.
In the film, it made mention of bioplastics, and I know you all spoke somewhat against it a moment ago. Somebody asked, what is bioplastic? I know that's mentioned in the film, so I don't know, have an explanation is very helpful, but what would you say bioplastic is, to answer their question?
I can take that. What it is, and it sounds good, okay? And it is a step in the right direction because it's not using fossil fuels, but it's using plant-based items. And as what we're talking about, environmental justice. So we're taking, corn is one of the products that are often used in bioplastics. So we're taking land to make plastic when we should be using land to make food. And we are in it they're just as bad, even though it's not the environmental fossil fuel, the fact that we're using the pesticides, the transportation of it ends up acting exactly like plastic once it is a plastic. So not only are we still making plastic, but we're taking away land that could possibly be food.
When we're looking on containers, obviously bioplastic is not much better than plastic. Can you tell us what symbols to look for, or along those same line, are there any of those materials which are called compostable?
So this is a tricky one too, and Pat, please jump in. I don't know if you all know this, if we've made this clear. Pat and I love each other very much, so I don't want to ever step on Pat's toes in an answer. But what's difficult about this, and this is why some of the work that's being done now, is around truth in labeling, right? So a lot of the time you'll see a bag that says it's compostable, and then in tiny fine print, it says compostable in industrial facilities. It's not compostable in your backyard compost bin. It is compostable in an industrial facility where it is getting to insane temperatures to break down, right? So truth in labeling is critical, because you could have, I don't have anything plastic around me because no, but you can look at the bottom of a certain plastic and it'll have your recycling symbol. If that market does not exist for your county, your municipality, your state, it's not going to be recycled, right? You as a consumer can do everything right. You can wash it. And I know this is depressing. There is hope. We'll get there. You can put it in your bin. If there is not a market for it, even if it is marked as recyclable, with compost, it's sort of a similar thing. Unless you are getting a compost service that can pick it up and do it for you, a lot of the compostable things are only compostable in those industrial facilities. So the best thing we can do is find ways to bring our own reusable packaging that we can fill up and use over and over.
Often when we purchase things, they come in styrofoam packing. Do you have any suggestions on how to handle the styrofoam?
I would say the best thing is to, if you can't refuse the item, to reduce the item. If there's two packages and one isn't in styrofoam, do not choose styrofoam. We do have a ban now in Maryland for styrofoam. So on that same vein, once they took that away, they got rid of the recycling styrofoam in Howard County, their facility, their landfill. So now you have to bring it to Crofton. But again, like Kate said, if there's not money behind it, tell me who is going to use it. And styrofoam, honest to goodness. I mean, I'm a nurse. I could talk months about the dangers of all plastics, but that one is a real loser. So I would say if you can minimize it as much as you can, that was the way to go with styrofoam. And just to tag on to, what is recyclable in Howard County, it's only 1 and 2. Number of jugs and bottles and things are really the only ones that are recyclable. They say they take 5, but again, like Kate said, there's no market for 5. So it's like, what are they really doing with it? So that's a whole other issue.
The little squares for our dishwashers, they come in those little boxes and they're inside a plastic baggie, the dishwasher squares. What about those little wrappers for those dishwasher cubes? Are those that bad multi-layered stuff, or are those wrappers recyclable at all?
No, they're not recyclable at all. And the biggest gift you can give our county is if you're looking at a garbage can in a recycling bin and you're holding something, you say, is this recyclable? If you have to ask that question, it probably isn't. And so honestly, for how much it breaks everyone's heart, it's better to throw it out, because if you don't throw it out, that item could possibly contaminate a whole bale of good recycled items. That item would have to have addition emissions because you'd have to transfer it from the facility to the landfill. So
well, that's a really good point. That's like it showed in the film, those multi-layered packets. It's better just to throw those away than to mix them in with our recycling, because that may mean they won't recycle everything. Might contaminate the recycling and they may not recycle it. Is that kind of what you were just saying?
That's exactly right.
Wow, well, that's
they would just throw out the whole bale.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
Somebody pointed out that Rwanda is a plastic free as of 2009. Is that true? And what do you know about that? And what are the odds of us being able to mimic some of their practices?
I think it takes the political will, and that's really what it is. Like, I hate to boil it down to that, but it is about putting people over profit. It is about putting planet over profit. And I get frustrated when we don't do that, and when we have these conversations and it's like, yeah, but what about industry? And it's like, what? So I think we can do it. I think it is possible. The other thing about it is that those laws are incredibly enforced in countries with them. And again, I should educate myself more on Rwanda specifically, but I can say in general, other countries actually enforce their plastic laws incredibly strictly. And that's what it's going to take here too, is like industry is going to need to feel the penalties. I mean, they can't just be slaps on the wrist.
Somebody asked about if the EU model is something you emulate, but they also said that EPR, and I apologize, I don't know what EPR stands for. I know what EU stands for, but I'm not sure what EPR stands for.
We know what EPR stands for.
Very
Pat
good.
and I are working on an EPR bill here in Maryland for producer responsibility. I sent the link up above. It is HB 36. And yes, Susan, we absolutely should have EPR here. It is certainly something we should emulate. The very quick snippet about what EPR is, it is holding producers accountable for the waste that they create. And it is creating a fee structure that incentivizes producers to stop making items that are not recyclable. So that's my quick.
What can an individual do to change the source plastic producers? I'm sure one of them you've mentioned about writing your legislator. Are any other steps a person could take?
I would say, like I said, get involved in an organization, find your passion. If you say, this is disgusting and this has to change, that's where I got. And I said, I'm not going to tolerate this anymore. I'm going to work to make a change, work to make a difference. So that's why we submitted these bills. That's why we're working at the state level. That's why I'm working at the federal level, because the Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act would make everyone's life easier. We wouldn't have to fight for this because it'd be federal legislation that it needs to be addressed. And just like Kate said, for the last 50 years, the industry has been getting a free ride. They make the plastic, they're making the plastic harder and harder to recycle, and then blaming us for that. And now they're saying, look at all this hard plastic we can't recycle. Oh, now we have to use chemical recycling to solve it. So they're creating the problem, and then they're using more polluting problems to try to convince us that we can solve this way. So,
and I'll just add super quickly to that question. Environment America, which is the sort of big group that Environment Maryland is a piece of, we actually do have a corporate campaign right now that's targeted towards the top corporate polluters. So it doesn't have to be us, I hope it's us, but find a group that you can sign a petition to, right? Because if we have thousands and thousands and thousands of consumers saying enough's enough, that's a really big way to change it too, because it is, it relies on businesses too, saying we want to continue packaging our things in plastic. So I'll try to send a link for some of the corporate work.
I would imagine with COVID this past year, there's probably been an uptake in the multi-layer bags. People have been picking. I'm assuming that's true. Maybe you can't measure it, but it would seem likely that that's a problem. Would banning those, how much of a problem are those, if you can measure such a thing, those Frito bags? That's the image that comes to my mind. I'm not sure if that's what we're talking about.
Yep, that's a typical multi-layer bag that they created, and it's impossible to recycle. So that just goes to the landfill or incinerated. And they know these products can't be recycled, and they make them anyway because they're cheap and they're not responsible for their full life cycle. So that's where the EPR sneaks in to say, hey, you should be responsible.
And I'll just add super quickly, Pat's 100% right. And Pat, you might remember in our hearing to ban this plastic to fuel chemical recycling, they actually mentioned these potato chip bags. Like, they actually mentioned snack bags of like, look, there's no other way to handle this. So we need to turn it we need to chemically convert it and then burn it as fuel. And so that's exactly right. What Pat said is like, but there is another option, and it is producer responsibility.
Do you know, maybe you, I'm not sure if you know about the question whether schools and school cafeterias are getting on board with the issues of these plastics. Again, you might not know the answer to that question, but do you have any sense our schools, how active they are about educating, and especially school cafeterias, about avoiding them?
Yes, well, I would do presentations at schools and they were trying to do their best, but actually right before COVID hit, they had decided for some reasons to stop recycling at schools. So in a way, it's COVID gave us the leeway to try to work something out that's better than that, because that is what happened. Was, remember when they were saying you couldn't put the recycling in plastic bags anymore? So that was the school's excuse to stop recycling altogether instead of trying to find a better reason. So I was actually starting to work on that when other schools closed, but that when schools go back, I'm afraid that's going to be an issue that needs to be addressed.
I suppose it's conceivable we could at least ask our local school principals about it, or our school district, if they are working on anything. You know.
Well, I can promise you 5 emails to the Board of Ed, to your county council, for the CA board makes a difference. So if enough people say that you have to find a better solution, they will listen. But if people don't, gang, we are more powerful than they are, than the bad guys, if we all bound together.
Earlier on, somebody was asking about stores that don't allow you to bring in your own bags. I think Aldi says you have to use boxes. I'm not sure if that's what this person was talking about, so I don't know the exact context of their questions, but they were concerned that some places won't let you bring in your own bags. Do you know anything about that?
I would think that they might be talking about the COVID, like when COVID first started, and it was a brand new situation, so we didn't know a lot about it. But study after study after study after study has shown that the ability for this vaccine, for this virus to get to you when it's on an object is next to nil. So most stores, I'd be surprised if any stores don't allow your own bags. And if that was the case once upon a time, I would call them. And I have plenty of research to document that proves that it is safe to use reusable bags.
I think the big issue was they didn't want you to hand them your bag, but they could always hand you their stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
One of the comments here is, are we going to hear from Kathy and Marty? And so I don't.
Yes, I'm gonna jump in here, and there's some really great questions, and if folks want to stay on after, but we want to keep to our time. I did have one question from someone who was wondering if there are any posters or anything that she could display at her senior living building about how bad plastics are. So I don't know if there's any print material that's not plastic coated that that people could display. So I'm going to jump in here and just do a really quick run through of my presentation, and then yes, you will hear from Kathy and Marty. Well, from Marty, and then Father Bowen again as well. But so my name is Bonnie Sorak. I am I'm the outreach coordinator for Interfaith Partners for the Chesapeake, and we're thrilled to be working with. Hold on, I'm trying to change the spotlight. There we go. So are you seeing me? I don't know what they're seeing. So at Interfaith Partners for the Chesapeake, we work with communities of faith to help them understand the problem of polluted stormwater runoff and to take action to help solve those problems. So first, I just want to say thank you to all of our contributing organizations that helped tonight be possible. All our different sponsors and the different churches that helped us to promote this event and to help us cover the cost of making the film available. So we really appreciate everyone's input for that. What can you and your faith community do? We tend to focus on 3 different areas. Forming faithful stewards, raising awareness, like doing programs like this is just help to educate people about the problems that surround us. Then taking action, caring. What we work on is working with congregations to do things like tree plantings and putting in cisterns and rain gardens and things like that, or going and doing trash cleanups. If you want people to understand what a problem plastic is, take them out to do a stream cleanup, and they will see what the problem is firsthand, and that will really motivate them. We can help you to do projects like that. And then going forth is to embrace your wider community, and not just your congregation, but also the communities surrounding you. The way we do this is through what we call a menu for action, where we work in different localities with their local folks to come up with a list that we and our partner organizations can help congregations to accomplish. So this one that I have showing you is our kind of our generic menu for action. We have different ones for Anne Arundel County, Howard County, Harford County, Baltimore City. So they're on our webpage, on our resources page. We're happy for you to access that there. I did want to make this available to you. This is also on our resources page. Some people struggle with trying to explain, well, what is environmental racism? What is environmental justice? So we have some handouts that are geared to the faith community about the health effects of environmental injustice, and also the moral standing that people of faith can really bring to the issue. How do we do the work that we do? We work to help congregations form green cares or green teams or creation care ministries. We do this through a workshop called Faithful Green Leaders Training. We have one that starts tomorrow night. It's not too late to register. We'd love for more congregations to sign up. That's how we started this, working with St. John's the Evangelist Roman Catholic Church. They came to our training, and this is one of the outcomes of that training. So we'd love to have more folks sign up for our training. Part of that, that's a 3-session training, 3 90-minute Zoom sessions. And then we offer what we call a learning lab once a month on Thursday, the first Thursday of every month. We have different topics, and we drill down deep into different topics that can help congregational green teams advance their causes. Then we ask congregations to sign a partner pledge that says we are going to care for creation, that we're taking a stand. And we have a map on our website that shows all the congregations that have taken the pledge, so that when folks are looking for a new congregation and they're trying to find one that shares their value of caring for God's green earth, they can look at the map and say, oh, there's a church near me that is doing this kind of work. So we encourage you to go ahead and look that up and take our partner pledge. So we talked a little bit about tonight, that going forth piece is in advocacy. A lot of people of faith are a little bit nervous about doing advocacy work. It is perfectly fine. As long as you are not endorsing a particular candidate, you can voice your opinion about an issue. You will not jeopardize your 501c3 designation if you're working on advocacy issues. So these are the issues that IPC is following this legislative session, and we have a web page for advocacy, and we try to post all these wonderful resources there that you heard tonight, and can keep track of what's going on with those bills. And then also do something great. We have a program called The Power to Motivate. We are working right now with congregations, helping them to do behavior modification projects within their congregations. So we have picked 5 different actions that people can work on, that congregations can help their members work on. You will get, this is a way to learn how to pick one and run a campaign at your congregation. So we are developing toolkits right now that you could choose to either help people reduce their use of single-use plastics, plant or care for a tree, plant or care for a native garden, eat less meat, and using a clothesline or a dryer rack instead of using a dryer inside. So There's a link here for a survey that we'd love for you to send out to your congregation. Our partner on this is the Anne Arundel Watershed Stewards Academy, and they will compile that information to help you to try to figure out what makes the most sense to run a campaign in your congregation. So for instance, if most of the people in your congregation live in a rental community and they don't have the ability to plant a tree, maybe that's not the best campaign for you to run. Maybe you should pick something else. So running through this program will help you to decide what's the best campaign for you to run. So we would love for you to, and I will share the link to that survey when we do the follow-up to this call. We also have Lent is coming for those groups that follow that. And so just want to let you know, we have a Lenten Creation Care calendar that has all different things, that, reflections and things you can use during the period of Lent. And that's on our website as well. I just want to put a bug in everybody's ear that Earth Day is coming. Well, spring is coming, everybody. Did you know spring is coming? And Earth Day is the third Thursday this year. It's April 22nd. It's the last Thursday of the month, the second to last Thursday of the month. IPC is planning a big Earth Day celebration. Similar to tonight, it will be we'll be sharing a movie and then putting a panel discussion together, just like we did tonight, and hopefully a celebration of all the congregations that have signed the pledge in the last year to kick things off and get things rolling into the summer, when hopefully we can all get together again. So that's all I had. I'm going to turn it over to my really great friend and partner in crime in this event tonight, Marty from St. John.
On behalf of St. John the Evangelist Green Team, we want to deeply thank all of the participants, as well as all the people who helped do the techno work, and the panelists, Kate and Pat, and Father Bowen and Dr. Melton. Thank you so very much. We hope that you are all motivated to reduce your own use of plastic and use your voice, not just to pass the word along to family and friends, but to use your voice to urge, encourage our legislators, elected officials to act, to create change, to be the change we wish to see. So with that, I would like to have Father Jerry Bowen share the closing prayer for us all. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Marty. Can you all hear me? Oh, good. Praise God. I want to just say that I'm very grateful too for not only the lives of all the people that I've met for the first time here and our presenters, although I do know Marty and Kathy, but for all the almost 70 people who were sharing with us as part of this. It's very encouraging. A quick story. At the creation of, as God was creating the earth, 4 angels were watching. One said, "What are you doing?" The other one said, "How are you doing it?" Another one said, "Why are you doing it?" And the fourth one looked over God's shoulder and said, "Can I help?" And so we pray, bring healing to, this is also from Bergoglio, Jorge Bergoglio, who became Pope Francis. This was his prayer for the earth. He says, bring healing to our lives, that we may protect the world and not prey on it, that we may sow beauty, not pollution and destruction. Touch the hearts of those who look only for gain at the expense of the poor in the earth. Teach us to discover the worth of each thing, to be filled with awe and contemplation, to recognize that we are profoundly united with every creature. As we journey towards your infinite light, we thank you for being with us each day. Encourage us, we pray, in our struggle for justice, love, and peace. We ask this in the name of the Almighty. Amen.
Thank you so much. Kate and Pat, I don't know if you can stick around. We still have questions. I don't know if you want to stick around and answer those, or we can, I can send them to you and we can try to do it. It's up to you how you want to do that. Folks, if you want to stay on or no.
I can stay on, Betty.
You can stay on a while? Okay, so for those of you, that concludes the formal part of our presentation, but if you want to stay, we did have a ton of more questions that we didn't get to, so I'm happy to try to work us through that. Pastor Stephen and Father, if you want to go, that's fine, or you can stick around and hear the answers. I don't know. And I did want to say there was a comment in here about Trader Joe's finally starting to let us pack start packing groceries with reusable bags. I'll say someone did something at the grocery store the other day. They forgot their bags, and you know that's you forget your bags, and you're like, oh, it's snowing, I'm not going to go back out. And so someone suggested, well, just put the groceries back in your cart and wheel your cart out to your car, and then you can load your own bags in your car. So I thought that was brilliant, and wow, just had never thought about that before. And then I just also want to say, Kate, I am not a millennial. I'm way older than you are. So I can speak for the older generation. We remember when there wasn't plastic. I remember when plastic became a thing. So we can go back. Like, we created this, we have to uncreate this. So so there's that. All right, so I think we have a comment. It says our school requires students to bring their own cup. So what a great idea, right? Let's see. Here we go. There we go. If some items like paper cups are marked compostable, can they be composted in Howard County's composting operation?
I've actually talked to the composting facilitator at the landfill, and he said, honestly, if it looks like plastic, like a plastic compostable fork, let's say, which looks just like plastic, they will not accept it. So again, there's only 113 facilities that are truly compostable. Like Kate was saying, how high the temperature has to be able to work through the bioplastic. So again, the reusable is the way to go. And that's what we all, it's not, I'm telling you, it's not as convenient, it's habits we have to develop. We all remember our mask now. Now we all have to remember all these other things. But what a small price to pay to be good ancestors.
Right. Someone asked, can you comment on the impact of the fast fashion industry?
Yeah, so I actually can put in the chat here, our sister organization at USPIRG, which is the Public Interest Research Group, has done an entire Waste is Out of Fashion campaign that specifically is around calling out fast fashion and the way in which it really feeds the waste crisis, and polyester in particular as a plastic product. So this is a blog that they did. They also just had this amazing webinar with some like very top fashion people. I obviously don't know, but I'll find that link and put it in there as well.
Great. This is in from Evelyn M. Evelyn says they have no choice about using plastic trash bags, that it's mandated by their county. So I think Evelyn, she can't answer me. I'm not sure what county she's in. I'm trying to remember. I should know that. I think she's in Anne Arundel. But have you run into that where counties are requiring trash to be put in? So it's the opposite. You have to take it out. Some counties make you put it in plastic bags, and other counties make you take it out of plastic bags.
I don't know what county that is, but that would be a type of action where you see something that is ridiculous and you can fight for it, Go to your county council and say, that's not sustainable. There has to be sustainable options.
Is there leverage in working with beverage companies? Are there buyers of most of the bottles, or no? How is that?
That's so, like Pat and I were mentioning earlier, we have this producer responsibility bill. That's where the bottle bill comes in, that is separate, right? So Maryland has a bottle bill in General Assembly right now, and that's where bottle bills are proven to reduce bottle pollution in huge ways. Pat, is there anything else on that?
We need a bottle bill. Like when I did the tour of the recycling facility, I said, what's the biggest problem with recycling? They said contamination. And what's the best way to solve that? They said dual stream. And that's not happening. We have single stream, so it increases the contamination. So that's the bottle bill is a beautiful bill because it separates it out. So you have that single stream of just these bottles. And so like in Oregon, they passed a bottle bill in 1971. Their recycling rate for bottles is like 90 in the 90 percentiles. So it's an essential bill, and we do not want it to get tied up into the EPR bill because industry, once they get a grab of some money, they're not going to let it go. So that is an amendment we're asking for in the bill.
Great. I think we have one or two more. We might have addressed this a little bit, but it says right now we put fresh vegetables in plastic bags. I reuse the vegetable bags over and over again until they're worn, but it's still plastic. What is the alternative?
So I have a set of produce bags. They're made by, well, you can find them anywhere, but they're made by a company called Colony. But actually what I've found is that I make little, for produce, there's a few different, I think, tutorials I'll try to find where you can make like the little produce bags that aren't, so I have my bulk bags, which are like little cotton bags I make out of old t-shirts for like bulk goods. But then for produce, you can sort of get those like knitted, I'm trying to think how to say it. They are a little bit more breathable. So you can make them yourself or you can order them. There's a great, I'll find the link for you, but there's a zero waste store where you can actually buy a completely organic cotton produce bag, macrame. Someone just put it in it's like that, and they're great.
All right, how to best support a bottle bill specifically?
Well, there's the bottle bill right now is in the state legislation. It is going to be heard on the, let me get this right. It's going to be heard on the 17th. No, it's going to be heard on, yes, it's going to be heard on the 17th. And so you want, with COVID, everything's different at this state level now. So you want to submit your testimony by the 15th between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. Go to the website for Maryland General Assembly. You have to set up an account and put in the bill number. That's the easiest way to find any of the bills. And so it's HB 0069. And you can give oral testimony as long as you sign up. And like I said, that is the best way. And find out who is your representative and call them and say, I want them to support this bill.
That's great. What sort, this will be the last one because we've already held you over 15 minutes longer than we were supposed to. What sort of market is there for plastic bags? For the bags and wrapping we can't avoid, is it really getting recycled? I think the answer we heard was no. I'll just throw a tip out there to folks. When I watched this movie for the first time, I went ahead and I switched to shampoo bars and conditioner bars for my hair care products, and also switched to laundry detergent sheets. So I no longer buy laundry detergent because mostly what you're shipping is water. And so I'm getting up the gumption to talk to the places where I shop to say, because nobody has those. You can't find them in any of the stores. And so eventually when enough people start switching and they're all ordering them online, I imagine that the grocery stores will figure that out, that they're not selling as much laundry detergent and they need to at least offer an option in our local stores. And that would be great. They'd have all that more shelf space they would have to fill with other things that we don't need.
That's great, Bonnie. Those are all perfect examples of what you want to do. You still need things, but you want to reduce wherever you can. And those plastic bags or the film bags that you bring to the grocery store, just to let you know, the closest place around here is Indiana, that they bring it to the Trek to make those Trek things. So think of the emissions that we're doing. And honestly, I have never had a confirmation that yes, in fact, they do that. But so those are all the things. Again, reduce wherever you can, but the best thing is to refuse and reuse.
And I would encourage you, there's some great testimony from Allie Dysard, who works for My Organic Market for moms. And she talks about what happens in how the sheer, I think it's like tens of thousands of pounds of plastic bags that they have to keep before trucks will pick them up, before they'll take them. And they all have to be clean and they all have to be the same. So like if you have all the thin white plastic bags, but one like black plastic bag gets in there, they won't accept it. So then it's shipped to Indiana, like Pat said, and it's burned in an incinerator.
Thank you, ladies, so much for sticking around a little bit longer. And